it's not really a unity government without Netanyahu. When you talk about unity governments in Israel, it usually means the large parties sort of on both sides of the aisle. So it's there's a lot of political doublespeak going on here. I heard in the introduction you mentioned Netanyahu being surprised and disappointed that Ganz did not, say yes to his offer of unity. I'm sure Netanyahu is neither surprised nor disappointed. At this point, the politicians are trying to become experts in game theory, trying to game out sort of different ways that this could work out and what is the best way to sort of challenge the other side and make themselves look good and the other side look bad. And so at this point, it's really a game. The official negotiations, I think, will start next week after the president chooses a candidate to form the government.
Okay. Now, Benny Ganz, has from the beginning pitched pretty much his whole election campaign about the fact that he is not Benjamin Netanyahu. So, it's hard to see how he could ever sit in a government with him. But on his own, he can't form a government. He can't get to 61, can he?
Yeah, the results of this election have been a true stalemate. Neither side can really reach a majority without partnering with the other ones. And it's in part because of this real stalemate where neither the right nor the left has a majority. And in part because there's another party in the middle, the Yisrael Beitenu party, which it's a right-wing party, but they're a bit more liberal on certain social issues than Likud. And they've basically said they will only sit in a unity government with Likud and blue and white. And so they're leaving all of the other parties sort of on the wayside, and they're all stuck without a majority.
That's the party of Avigdor Lieberman. Well, there's another possibility, is there not, that MKs, lawmakers from blue and white or other parties might join a right-wing bloc? Is that a possibility?
It is a possibility. I think at this point, at least, it's a long shot. But I do think that if we continue in this stalemate situation and there's no progress towards a coalition for a few weeks, then you'll start seeing some of the less likely scenarios actually happening. Whether it's Knesset members from the real ideological left starting to look towards the right so that there'll be a coalition, or some of the more centrist members of the blue and white bloc being willing to sit with the right.
And of course, where does all this leave Benjamin Netanyahu? Because he's got these corruption cases hanging over his head, hasn't he? And in just a couple of weeks, he's supposed to sit down for a pre-indictment hearing. Is that right? Where does this leave all of that?
Yes. So, in theory, right, one shouldn't influence the other. The Attorney General says he's not influenced by the political situation. In practice, if Netanyahu is not prime minister, he's in a much more precarious position going into these trials. And so for him, in a way, this is a fight for his life and for his freedom. But it's also really hindering his ability to negotiate in this coalition building process, because blue and white refuses to sit with Netanyahu as long as he has the specter of an indictment over him. The thing is that people say Ganz refuses to sit with Netanyahu, Ganz refuses to sit with Netanyahu, but it's really as long as these corruption scandals continue. Chances are they will continue. All indications show that the Attorney General plans to take this all the way and indict Netanyahu, but there's always a chance. Now, people have been talking also about another sort of long shot scenario where if no coalition can be formed, that maybe Likud, some of the other senior members of Likud will oust Netanyahu, and then they will elect a new leader, which then Ganz would agree to sit in a coalition with whoever the new leader may be.
And another possibility, of course, would be going back to the polls. Do you think it's feasible there could be a third election in Israel?
Anything is possible. Everybody is saying that they don't want it. And you also would need a majority of the parliament to vote for it to happen. So you would need 61 votes. And I think it'll be very difficult to get enough votes to support dissolving the parliament yet again and having a third election in a year. But there had never been two elections in 1 year in the past in Israel, so never say never.
And just finally, Why is the country so divided? I mean, we can see this all around the world right now, but in Israel, it seems to be literally divided in two right now. The country cannot seem to agree on what it wants.
Well, Israel's parliament, the Knesset, has always been divided into a lot of parties. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but it's never been a two-party system or anything even closely resembling a two-party system. So in that way, I don't think it's super divided or so much more divided than it is before. And it's also important to note that blue and white, they're not really a left-wing party. They're more of a centrist party, and they actually have a lot in common with Likud. So there's definitely this sort of divisive atmosphere and a lot of divisive language, and it turns into this sort of people who argue the most when the differences are very small. That's really what it's come down to. It's not that the differences are so big here.
All right, Lahav Harkov, great to have your analysis. Thank you very much indeed. Lahav Harkov there at the Jerusalem Post.